one thing with the NBA Finals wrapping up, another interesting headline that came through really was what we kind of talked about last week a little bit here when we were trying to figure out if Durant was going to come back. Last Saturday, they were down 3-1. And, Josh and I, we talked about, is the finals over? Is it done? And we both felt like it's not looking good, even if Durant comes back. And I said I didn't think Durant was going to come back at all. I just didn't think the reports that I heard, the workouts weren't good.
That's what I heard.
He just was not. He didn't look 100% healthy. And that's just a calf injury is something you just don't want to mess with. It can linger and take a long time to come back from. It's, you hear about players that get it and they miss like 2 months, especially in baseball or something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like look at Giancarlo Stanton, who had a bicep strain and then it went to his calf somehow and hasn't played since the third game of the year.
Yeah.
We played 68 games so far this year. He's missed 65.
But he's back in. He's doing rehab.
Well, he got a moonshot home run. But the point is, they linger and they're very tough to come back from. And I told, Josh, I said if he comes back, there's no way he's 100% healthy. There's no way he's going to have an impact. Now he came back game 5 and had 11 points.
Tore his Achilles.
And was like sharp as you could be.
Yeah,
Really
really
I was
good.
like, wow, this guy's just disgusting. Like he's playing on one leg. But I'm just waiting for it, and it's sad. And he's gonna go down. It's gonna lock up on him or something. And then unfortunately, it was worse than a calf injury. His Achilles ruptured, and I mean we can actually see it. Yeah. It was on Twitter, the close-in slow motion shot of watching the man's Achilles pop up through his calf. And the question has been, did the Warriors rush it, bringing him back? Did they rush throwing Durant out there? And look, here's the thing. And it's unfortunate because this is the way society is, especially in sports.
Yeah.
You're facing elimination. You're in the championship game. You're hurt. You're expected to play. Mm-hmm. And if you don't play, you're soft. You're weak. You're not the greatest of all time. Because, again, everybody compares somebody to somebody, and usually it's Michael Jordan or somebody, and everybody has this false, persona of Michael Jordan that he was like superhuman and can do it all because he has done extraordinary things. You had an unbelievable performance with the flu. Hey, that's
the flu.
That's not easy to do, and he was unbelievable in it.
It's a Paul Pierce injury.
But the point is, here is everybody compare Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan would have been out there. He did it with the flu, and everybody has this like false persona that he was like superhuman. Like Jordan had ups and downs as well. He had downs, folks. He wasn't perfect.
He was 1-9 in the playoffs.
Exactly.
Before
he
got
had a lot of, but that's just the way it is. People get compared to and expected it as Alex is screaming.
I'm with you.
Well, I'll have what he's having. But
he was. I'm just
he's the only guy on the team.
You get these like false images from people and expectations that they got to be. They're athletes. They get paid all this money. They got to suck it up and they got to do this. If he does not play, he's going to be criticized worse than he was for joining Golden State to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he would have been torn apart by the media as soft and just doesn't care. And then he comes back, right? He comes back and he gets hurt. And everybody, he's a true warrior. He goes out there and he just played it all on the line for his team. Would you be saying that if he didn't come back? No. You would be the guy tweeting, this guy's a bum.
Yeah, this guy's soft.
He's not tough enough. Oh, my goodness. One time I had a paper cut, and I went out there for my church league softball game and played. It was hard, but I did it. So there's no excuse. Like, you get people that do that.
Right.
And it just blew my mind that he's a warrior. I mean, he's a legend. He went out there, and he gave it his all, and he sacrificed his body. You were the same guy telling me he was soft. You're the same guy.
Absolutely.
The same guy.
Well, it was just weird because, in the
He didn't have a choice to come back, by the way, because of that. Just saying. But go ahead.
In the week, a few days leading up to Game 5, you hear that he was at practice and he practiced with the team. And then I heard on, I think it was on Get Up, it was Richard Jefferson and Jason Williams. Richard Jefferson's like, he left practice early. And he's like, practice it's not full-blown sprints. They're not going up and down the court.
Right.
This is not even really a practice. This is just kind of a walkthrough to just go over some of the mistakes from the previous game and fix some things. He's like, if he's leaving early from this kind of practice, it's like it's not a good sign. And then the day of Game 5 or the day before game, or maybe it was the day of, they announced he was questionable, a game time decision. And then he goes out there and plays, and when he, like you said, when he gets on the court, you're like, oh wow,
Yeah, he looked good.
maybe he is 100%, and then it's like, maybe not.
The whole time I just sat there and watched, and I said, I'm just waiting for something to happen.
I was
cramped up or
doubting.
something. I was just waiting for it to happen.
Yeah, I was doubting. I was like, he's playing well, but it just felt so rushed to get him back on the court. And I think it was a combination of two things. I think it was partly the Warriors and partly Kevin Durant. I think the competitor in Kevin Durant, the teammate that Kevin Durant is, he wanted to be back on the court because he realized, I think his team realized, holy crap, without you, we're not going to win.
Right.
Like we need you on the court. And he realized that, and he felt the pressure from not only his teammates, and maybe they didn't, verbalize, hey, we need you, but they kind of showed it by the fact that they were down 3-1.
Right.
Yeah. So he realized, and he got pressure from that side. He also got pressure from fans because KD is notorious for being a guy who really cares about what the media says about him and what fans. I mean, the guy had 5 burner accounts on Twitter.
Right.
Going back at some of the people that were sending him, mean tweets and stuff like that. And so he cares. It just seems like there was a lot of pressure surrounding him, and so he just gave in. And it's easy to say now that he tore his Achilles. You should have set out. But also, I think the competitor and all of us, if we're in the NBA Finals, we're down 3-1.
I'm going to want to play.
Right.
We're going to want to play. I mean, Klay Thompson wanted to play on torn ACL.
Right.
He didn't want to come out.
Right.
And I think we didn't get a chance to see the emotion, but in Game 5 when he went back to the locker room, Kevin Durant, that is, when he went back to the locker room and Doris Burke reported that, he's screaming. He was tore up. I mean, that goes to show, number one, not only does he really care, but he also loves to play the game of basketball, and he loves to compete, and this meant a lot to him. Now, if he comes out and he's healthy for Game 5, and he's healthy for Game 5 and Game 6, they probably win this. They come back and win the series. I fully believe
definitely.
that.
If they got with him on the court.
Yeah.
If they got it to 7, it would have been a different talk today. I really, because last week I said it was over. I don't think Kawhi loses 3 in a row. If they would have lost Game 6 and Kawhi never got hurt,
right,
I would have been sitting here telling you today. I think I got a little caught into the emotions of being down 3-1.
Right.
And I have to go back on what I said. If I'm being honest.
Yeah. But now, I mean, Durant tearing an Achilles, we've seen what it's done to DeMarcus Cousins' athleticism.
Right.
I mean, obviously Durant 6'11", he doesn't have to rely too much on his jumping ability. Obviously he can shoot lights
his
out.
His build too is different.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see what kind of. I mean, I don't think he'll be. The drop off won't be that bad, but he did tear his Achilles, and we saw what happened to Kobe after he tore his Achilles.
Well, I mean, he is getting old. I mean, it's not like he's happening when he's 24.
Yeah.
I mean, he's approaching 34.
It'll be interesting
32.
to see what he does in the offseason. Because this is his. Does he sign another 2-year deal with a player option, or if he commits long term like LeBron, this is his last big contract.
Right.
And he can get more money in Golden State. But it'll be interesting to see because I mentioned it earlier, the pressure that he feels. Does he want that kind of pressure again in Golden State? Because he is that important to that team.
Right.
We all realize how important Kevin Durant is to that team. We thought, well, you still have Steph Curry, Draymond, and Clay, and all these guys, and you've already won a championship. Well, they've gotten used to having arguably the greatest scorer in NBA history on their team. I mean, the guy is a walking 30-point a game. He's going to get you a bucket and shoot, almost 50% from the three-point line and 90% from.
And he's 6'11".
And he's 6'11", and he's got the handle of a point guard.
It's not right.
So it'll be interesting to see. Does he want to go somewhere and kind of be the guy? He's always been discredited. Being in Oklahoma City, he wasn't the guy there. Russell Westbrook was he wasn't the guy there. Russell Westbrook was always. I mean, he was very important. I'm not saying he wasn't important to his team, but wasn't.
KD wasn't the guy.
No, I mean, as far as
what he means by it is the same thing
like
that we see with Paul George. There is that it's Russell has the ball in his hands a lot.
Right.
Russell, when he was with KD, Russell would dictate what would happen more than Kevin
Durant was the best player.
Durant was the best
ball
player.
was in the ball was. It's the same thing. Like we talked a lot, or has been talked about this season. Is like Russell Westbrook has changed a little bit of ball dominance for Paul George this year, which is why Paul George is in the MVP discussion.
Right. Yeah.
That's what he means.
I can see that.
The Durant's the best player.
No, Durant's Durant's the alpha male, but yeah, he doesn't have that. He doesn't have to be ball dominant.
In his hands a lot.
Right. And I would say too. I mean, Russell was more of the alpha in the sense of I'm going to have the ball. Durant was. He was
real alpha.
Yeah. He was more willing to defer.
Right.
Rather than to take it. And that's what I mean.
Which you shouldn't have.
You shouldn't have.
But based on, Josh, do you look at it, did they rush him back? Or was it just, look, nobody was wrong on this. He just wanted to play. At the end of the day, he had to make the decision. If he didn't want to play, he didn't have to play.
I think it's more the latter. I mean, you look at the recovery time for a calf injury, it's 4 to 6 weeks. He's coming right back in the middle of that time range. And typically, I mean, there's only going to be at most 3 games left. Mm-hmm. At most, what's he going? If he waits it out, the season's going to be over. So, I think it was the right decision to come back. I mean, he looked good the first quarter and few minutes. I mean, he was running just fine. I just think it's it's one of those fluke things that happens, and it's really kind of changed the landscape of the NBA in the past for the next few years, and then you add the Klay Thompson deal on top of that, because Golden State's going to try to re-sign both of them, and if they re-sign both of them, they're not getting anything out of them for the next year. Maybe Klay late in the playoffs next year could come back. Maybe Durant, depends. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at the recovery times, it's a lot of times it's 260 days to a year.
Right.
And
unless you're Adrian Peterson.
But I mean, it's
not human.
But it changed the landscape. Durant was out the door to New York, and this may keep him there. But and now I think it's one of those deals where if Durant re-signs with Golden State, it's not a 1 year with a 1 year option. It's going to be probably a 2 year with a 1 year option added to it. So,
it kind of.
It sucks. I wish he wouldn't have got hurt, but it sucks.
We'll get into free agency here in a second, how this impacts free agency. But if they're going to sign both of them, somebody's going to take a pay cut. And at this point,
they got to add some depth.
At this point, nobody's taking a pay cut.
I don't think they should.
Nobody's going to take. I think Klay wants to be paid, or he's leaving. And I think Durant, out of the two, because free agency is going to be a general free agency thing. But for the sake of the Warriors, you got to take one guy. You only can keep Klay or Durant, because in theory Durant. You can keep two if you get them to take less, but it's not going to happen.
Kevin Durant.
I understand Kevin Durant's the better player, second best player in the world, but I'm keeping Klay.
Here's my dilemma with that. You look at kind of like when it was Shaq and Kobe. The Lakers, it was different because there wasn't an injury involved, but there was the drama. They had to do something, but they chose the younger guy. They got him 2 championships. Durant's 32. He may not be able to play again until he's 34. I think in the short term, KD's the answer. But in the long term, it's probably Klay.
He's 31. He's turning 30. It'll be about 33. 32, 33 when he comes back. I don't think 34.
But so are we saying he's missing an entire year?
Yeah, I don't think he's playing.
I mean, the best.
I don't think Wesley Matthews came back in 7 months, and Wesley Matthews has sucked.
The best turnaround time I've seen was of anybody that's been productive was Dominique Wilkins at 32. He is like 265 days.
Yeah.
Because I saw a list of that.
I'm taking Klay, not because I know everybody's he's a Knicks fan. Of course he wants him to come available, but I'm taking Klay. I think Klay showed me something in the finals. Like a couple of weeks ago we talked about the NBA all team,
create his own shot.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if he could take over. No, we haven't really seen that from him. I think I've seen a guy that could take over. I watched, and I know sometimes you get wrapped up in emotion, and I could be doing it myself, and I tell people not to do this, and I could very much be doing it myself. But I watched them in the finals. That looked like a guy that could take over. I mean, it's pretty. It's pretty.
And Klay,
and he's
sorry, Klay's always with KD and Steph on the floor. They've always ran Klay out there with the second unit to start the second quarter, and he's always held his own. I mean, I think he has. But
I'm not.
I take the younger guy. Which you can defend.
I tend to go with you.
You can defend and get buckets as well. Durant's a better player. There's no question about that.
Absolutely.
And anybody that's going to tell you no, it's not true, you're wrong. Kevin Durant is 10 times better than Klay Thompson, but it's not always about keeping the best player. It's what's the better fit. And I think you drafted him He developed there. He's a two-way
Tough,
player.
man. It's tough.
I mean,
I'm taking Clay.
I'll say this.
You lose him to L.A. like LeBron or something. My goodness.
Well, yeah.
My
Obviously, if he goes to L.A. or anywhere else, he's going to be great. He's a tremendous player. Should be all NBA. But I would say I would have to defer to Kevin Durant because
Better player. Absolutely.
he's Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
Right.
Like he's
My only
Kevin
thing
Durant.
is the age issue, but
Right.
But we
if
talk
I'm thinking about the here and now,
the
it's
size
KD.
of Durant.
But
Klay Thompson's the same size.
No, he's not.
He's not 6'11".
He's long.
He's like
lengthy.
No,
he's like
not
6'11".
6'11".
He's like 6'7".
What? You're telling me a couple of inches?
6'11".
You telling me a couple inches? No. That guy is just as
Klay
lengthy.
Thompson's
Just as-
6'6".
No. You ain't coming to my birthday party.
You're cut off. He's cut off. I cut off the wrong guy. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button. I don't know which number is which.
I'm still cut off. I'm not on.
You're not on?
No, you gotta hit the red button.
You got two.
Oh,
He keeps hitting
you're
the wrong
both
button.
off.
I'll say this. I'm taking Kevin Durant, number one,
His
because
length
he
is just as lengthy. He's just as lengthy.
Shut up.
And
No,
he's a
he's
good
not.
defender.
Okay, look. You
And-
can't. No, hold on.
And he came out there with a torn ACL and made free throws.
Can I make my point?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'm taking Kevin Durant, number one, because he's Kevin Durant. All right. And number two, we saw, okay, so let's just say they keep Klay Thompson, they get rid of Kevin Durant, they keep the same core.
They're
right?
not going to win.
Huh?
Yeah, they won't win the championship.
They won't win. We just saw that.
Unless they get
lost. Hold on. They lost game one. They won game two. Okay. Obviously, game three, different. They lost game four. They lost game five.
No, that was game 5.
Oh, they won game five.
They should have lost game 2.
And yeah, I know Klay went out. But he played 3 quarters. Would have been different fourth quarter. He had 30 points. He was on fire. Whatever. Game 6. Okay. But that core proved they needed a player like Kevin Durant.
to win. Yeah.
They needed a guy who says, "Look, give me the ball, defer to me, give it to me, and I'm going to hit this 30-footer in LeBron James' face." Okay, on a fast break.
Yeah.
I mean,
This is
Klay.
terrible.
I mean, I'm sorry. Klay Thompson's a great player.
29 years old versus 32 years.
I mean, that's fine.
You
That's
got
fine.
about 3 or 4 really good years out of Durant. You can get about 6 or 7 more from
That's fine.
That's true,
That's fine. But how much longer is Klay Thompson going to be a great defender?
forever.
Okay. He's going to be a great shooter. Okay. But with Durant, I've got a guy who's 6'11", who stretches the floor, who can play the 5 in nowadays NBA. Okay. Who is arguably the greatest scorer ever.
I think
ever. Like, let's think about that for a second before we take Klay
Right.
Thompson. The greatest scorer ever.
Maybe.
Ever.
He's in the discussion for sure. But the thing about Durant, too, is, I mean, he could play the perimeter, but when he gets older and less athletic, he could probably post you up and
Yeah.
make plays. He doesn't have to use his
It's tricky
athleticism.
because they're both really good.
They're both
Durant's
really
the better
good.
player. Durant's the better player. But if I'm Golden State, you drafted Klay. He's been there, and I get it. If you're looking at championships, Kevin Durant's going to bring you a championship.
Depends on what you put around him.
I just think, though, they're not going to have it. I think Kevin wants to go elsewhere and win elsewhere so that way he can get that.
Validation.
I didn't just have to come here,
Right.
to win type thing. So I think you're going to get Klay anyway, but
yeah.
I would be okay with that. That's all I'm saying.
All
All right.
We'll continue talking
Let's
about
jump
this.
to a break. We'll talk about the injuries and how it impacts free agency because it's you got Durant. Everybody was all giddy, and now he has a torn Achilles, ruptured Achilles. Does this change anything? We'll talk about that coming up next year on the Saturday Sports Report.